Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Saturday episode of the Light Sports Ramble. This is the Red Light Rant with myself, Troy Otradovic, always with Evan Witallison. Evan will be running some red lights today. I'm going to be burning some rubber at red lights. We love our Saturday show because, Evan, this is when we can just rant about something that really, like you said, in the Family Guy reference, we get to grind our gears on Saturday morning about something that just gets under our skin. So we take all our frustrations out and have a great rant on Saturday. Today I love the topic, and it is something that has been going on for a long time in Major League Baseball. It is the use of PEDs, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So before we get into that, how are you doing on this lovely morning? It's beautiful in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's not as beautiful here in Racine, Wisconsin. It's kind of, it's not that quite out yet. It's kind of cloudy and calling for possibly an inch or so of snow, which, being January in Wisconsin, it's when is it not going to snow is more of the question, but I'm doing all right.
That's good.
Back's getting a little bit better, so.
Well, we might as well throw the listeners in that may be new and those that listen all the time. Today's a big day in Wisconsin basketball, and you're going out to cover it, correct?
Yeah, yep, correct. The Wisconsin Badgers, who are currently third in the country, which probably will drop a little bit next week after their loss earlier this week to Indiana. They are hosting the Michigan Wolverines at the Kohl Center at 5 o'clock Central start, 6 o'clock over by you. And it should be a really exciting game, and hopefully Sam Decker comes out and rebounds after his pretty average game this past game. So it should be an exciting game.
Should be. We'll see how they rebound. This is a big game today for them. It's a big rebound game, big conference game. I'm looking forward to being able to watch it. And so, go Red, go Bucky, go Badgers. But let's get into it. I'm not sure if 30 minutes will give this topic justice today, Evan. But, everybody in the news is Alex Rodriguez, so I'm going to let you just start right there. That's how today's rant is going to start. So take it away with what's going on with that situation.
Well, earlier this week, the Alex Rodriguez's case is finally heard by the, air quote, independent arbitrator. And I use that term due to it's pretty much a stooge put in by Major League Baseball to always rule in favor of them, since they fired the last guy that didn't rule in favor of them. But that's another topic. But Alex Rodriguez's suspension was reduced to 162 games, which originally was 211 games. But Alex Rodriguez, instead of taking the suspension, is filing a federal lawsuit to get it overturned, which is very unlikely to happen because federal judges very rarely ever overturn ruling of a, air quote again, independent arbitrator. So seeing that he is suing Major League Baseball, Troy, what are your thoughts on that?
Ridiculous. Just flat out ridiculous. I'm so tired of all of this going on. You know what? I could care less. This is where I get frustrated, Evan. I could care less what you did right now. It's all of these other antics. I'm going to sue this, and I'm going to sue this, and I'm going to sue that. And it's not even just Rodriguez. It's we look at everyone today, they want to run right. I'm going to sue you. And I'm a director of a school, and it happens here. I've got to watch my P's and Q's, and we have trainings on this, because everybody's so worried about getting sued. You know what, Alex Rodriguez? Man up, like Ryan Braun did. And you know what? He did it. His lawyers told him to man up, take the damn suspension, come back and play. So just do it. What is he going to prove, Evan, by taking Major League Baseball to court and suing them? I mean, I don't understand what he is trying to gain. His name has already been rubbed through the mud. Whether he is found guilty or not guilty, public perception has already put him on trial, and public perception already is going to say he did it or he didn't do it. Very few people are going to change their opinion because he sues Major League Baseball. That is my opinion. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think he's trying to get people's opinions to change. You know, and I'm going to say right now, you know, I disagree with his lawsuit completely. You know, you got the punishment, so now deal with it. You know, we don't see the evidence that Major League Baseball presented in suspending him. We don't get that information. But I'm guessing it had to have been something quite serious if they not only suspended him for 211 games, but they got Ryan Braun to accept his suspension, and they got a number of other players to accept their suspension of 50 games. So they got to have something pretty damning. But, you know, looking at Alex Rodriguez's perspective, Ryan Braun, who had tested positive in the past, pretty much got a slap on the wrist suspension. And Alex Rodriguez, in his mind, who has never in his life tested positive, I shouldn't say never tested positive. He did test when they had the whole Mitchell report, but he has never really had a positive test, and they're giving him 211 games. And, you know, him being an advanced age, his career is winding down as it is, so he's trying to save whatever money is left on his contract. So I get what he's trying to do, but I don't really agree with it.
So let me ask this. So I'm going to jump onto your side and say, you know, that's why. And so I'll be on your side. Isn't that the job of his lawyers then, though, when they present this and say, okay, if we accept this, will this be acceptable to get into terms with the Ryan Braun thing? And again, we don't know all the details of it, but, you know, maybe there was more. I don't know. And so I can understand where you're coming from there, that he is getting older. He wants to play and so on and so forth. But shouldn't that have been done in that arbitration and when they're going about the penalty? And wouldn't it have been a lot easier if he would have said, okay, here's the deal. I'll take the suspension. What is the minimum amount that you're going to give me? Instead of trying to sit here and say, I'm just going to be stubborn about this and I'm going to try to beat it. Why don't they man up and say, okay, let's find a common ground here? Because again, too, you and I are going to get into this. This thing's been going on for way too long. There's been blind eyes turned to it, shoved under the carpet. It's become a huge, huge problem. But why don't the players just figure out a way to say, you know what, I got caught. What is the minimum time that you're going to allow me to serve? What do I have to do to get back in good graces? What do I have to do to get my uniform back on? Then I can play again. That's where I come from. I'm my rant, I guess, Evan, again, me being the idiot with an opinion, is more about the damn player trying to do whatever when in the first place, when they get caught, just man up at that point. And the same thing with Ryan Braun. All that fiasco with Ryan Braun. He finally manned up because his damn lawyer told him to. I don't think that was Ryan Braun manning up. I think it was his lawyers telling him to do that. And then he gets a suspension. That's where I'm at. So that's how I feel about that whole part of it. So let's talk, though, about how this has got to the point that it's gotten to, Evan. I mean, it is now to the point where it is coming up over and over and getting more severe and more severe. But you and I had a little chat before the show. This is not something that just came up overnight. This has been a long history of happening in Major League Baseball. And now we've gotten to this point. So take me back in time and tell me how we got to this point.
Well, for me, I put the blame for this point, how we got to this point, strictly on the shoulders of the soon-to-be outgoing commissioner in Bud Selig. You know, we all remember back in '94 when Major Major League Baseball went on strike, and they ended up having to cancel the World Series that year. And baseball was suffering in attendance and in television ratings after that strike. And they needed to find a way to get fans coming back. And that's when Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, Sosa pretty much coming out of nowhere. McGwire's always been a power hitter, but they started chasing Roger Maris's record of 61 home runs in a regular season. And there was speculation then how legit both players were in regards to doing it clean. McGwire that year is found with a bottle of Andro, which was not a banned substance at the time, in his locker, but there are many people that believe that the Andro was planted there due to people whispering around how he could be doing it. So that was planted there so he could say, oh, that's Andro. That's I use it, and it's completely safe and completely legal, to kind of get the reporters to stop sniffing around the other reasons it could be happening. And then that also then enticed Barry Bonds, who was a first ballot Hall of Famer at the time, even before he even started thinking about using anything, but he started using allegedly because he saw all the money that McGwire and Sosa were getting, and he was 10 times the player either of them were. So they say he started using due to that jealousy and not wanting to lose out on the payday. So it wasn't until Congress started sniffing around when Jose Canseco's book came out alleging that over half the players in baseball were using steroids, that when that book came out and started naming names of people that were using, including McGwire, Rafael Palmeiro, a couple of Canseco's former teammates, that's when the Congress started getting involved, and then that's when Bud Selig started really cracking down.
Isn't it just crazy? It's crazy that it got to this point. And then I was doing some research, and I talked to you, and when we start looking at some suspensions, and I just went a simple Google search. Major League Baseball players suspended for PED use. And it brought me back to 2005. And I had mentioned to you, the first suspension for PED use in 2005 was a whopping 10 games. So the stuff you're talking about is before this. So we've had the Congress, we've had the allegations of steroid use, we get some kind of testing in 2005, and Bud Selig decides to hand out a 10-game suspension. What the hell is 10 games? What is 10 games going to do at that point, Evan? What was he thinking at that point?
He's going to sting the hand for about 3 seconds when he gets slapped.
I mean, a 10-game suspension to a Major League Baseball player is a vacation. I get 10 days off?
Yeah, like I said, it's gonna sting, like when you take your hand or a ruler and you slap somebody else's hand with it, or I don't know if you ever had your hand slapped, it kind of stings for a few seconds and then it wears off. That's really what they're trying to do. They're just trying to sting that hand for a few seconds.
And I did have my hands stung, Evan. I went to Catholic grade school, so I had plenty of nuns slap my knuckles with a ruler, and I know how it feels. And yeah, it hurts at first, like you said, and it goes away. Did it really stop me from doing that again? Maybe, I don't know. That was so long ago I can't remember. But then in 2006, maybe he saw the light and he went to a whopping 50 games. Now that could hurt the pocketbook a little bit more. But still, was it enough to stop these guys from looking at it to say, you know what? I can get suspended for 50 games, but if I take this and I start hitting some home runs and I get a multi-million-dollar, multi-year contract, I've made my money. And that's where I'm going with this. The punishment at first was not enough to stop these guys from looking at it because the return was so much better. So I'll take the chance.
Because they're getting paid by the time they get caught.
Exactly. So the risk versus reward, the risk was not enough to stop them from the reward. Because you're exactly right. Now I can go sign a 7-year, $40 million contract, suspend me for 50 games. Plus I get to go back and play and keep my contract. And so that's where I'm going with that. That is what makes me so mad, is that there was nothing put in place to stop these players from taking the risk because the reward was so much. And I had done a previous ramble, and if listeners go back, I'm not sure what episode it was, but it was around the time that it came up with Braun, and I just rambled in my little ramble that was about 10 minutes long about my frustration about this. And, you know, what I look at is the problem when the punishment wasn't put down so hard long ago. How many players started doing this for the reward when they probably didn't have to? But it became so common that in order for them to get the big payday, they had to stay on pace with everyone else. So that's enough for me. I'll let you take over and talk about how you feel that it's affected the game and those players at this point. I mean, where are we going to go from here, bud?
Well, it's hard to say exactly where we're going to go from here because, you know, Tony Bosch had down to a complete science on, you know, because they know when, you know, they can only get tested so many times a year, and then only once in the playoffs. So he knew that science, and that's what he based his program on, is the science of the testing and all that stuff. And he had them, it was like little gummy bears or cough drops that you would take and would give you a quick boost of testosterone. And he had it down to a science that, hey, do not take this after the first inning of a game, because if you take it, if you do get tested, it's still going to be in your system. If you don't take it after the first inning, it's going to be out of your system. And, you know, he had that down to a complete science. So, you know, you see the names that were on, you know, scribbled onto the paper and the notebook paper. Those are the names that were suspended. But how many guys were probably truly using his supplements? Because if it was that down to a science that if you didn't take after the first inning and you could still get away with it, how many players were actually doing it? Because that, you know, because players don't want to test positive because they don't want to have that 50-game suspension plus pay. Now, where does it go from here? How long until, because they were supposed to be done after Victor Conte and Belko. It was supposed to be done. We had ridded it from baseball, you know, after the whole Belko investigation. But now Tony Bosch comes out with better and harder to detect products. Now baseball caught on to those. How soon until the next guy decides that he could come up with something even better that's going to make you even stronger, even bigger, even faster? And guess what? Baseball doesn't have a test for it yet. How soon before that guy comes out? And that's kind of what I'm looking at, because until you start really going after the suppliers and the people that make the product, you're not going to rid it from the game, because there's always going to be that next mad scientist that comes up with the next bigger product. And I'm not saying stop punishing the players. You have to punish the players, but start going after people like Tony Bosch and Victor Conte even harder than you already are. And the federal government, they need to start going after these guys because, hey, not only are these substances banned by professional sports, a lot of these substances are illegal. So start going after them if you truly want to rid this from the game. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I'm just waiting until the next person comes out with the next best stuff.
It'll happen. You and I both know it'll happen. And, you know, I look at you saying Congress needs to get involved. And so when you're looking at that, you hit it right on the head. Those substances are illegal. So there can be some jurisdiction. And you and I both know the Congression and Major League Baseball and the Players Union for not even Major League Baseball, any of the professional unions. Those are wars. But when you're, like you're saying, it is a problem in Major League Baseball. There are other entities out there that could ultimately be affected too if that next product comes out. And so I'm jumping on board with you. You still got to punish the player. They're of sound mind when they go to this guy and say, give me it. And are they any different than that person on the street corner that's out there buying illegal drugs? The answer is no. And how many task force do we have that are cracking down on illegal drugs in Racine, in Pittsburgh? There's plenty of task force. I watch the news in the morning. There's a drug bust here, a drug bust there. It's, to me, the same thing. These suppliers are providing an illegal substance. And so why is there not a task force doing something about that? I'm just throwing stuff out there. The last point I have...
There should be a task force out there for that.
There should be. Now, again, you're talking about budgets, and you're talking about money, and you're talking about player unions and all this stuff. That's where the politics get involved. And so, again, we don't know all the ins and outs of it. We're just two guys on a Saturday morning ranting about PED use. My ultimate problem, unless you have any more points on this, Evan, I have one thing that I think is kind of an after effect of what happens in Major League Baseball. Do you have anything else to add on this before I get into that point?
No.
I know.
I'm excited to hear your point.
When we look at the use in Major League Baseball, and this goes, and I remember having an argument in a bar about this after I did the ramble on my own. Players and role models. And so if Rodriguez's fan base think it's okay to do it, that's totally insane. I don't care if they're role models. I'm throwing that out of the question. But it goes to that reward factor. How many college kids are sitting there that are maybe an 8th, 9th, 10th round draft pick in Major League Baseball, that maybe just need a little more speed on their fastball, that maybe just need to hit 4 or 5 more home runs to get up into the first or second round? Because what comes with a first or second round draft choice in Major League Baseball, Evan?
Big signing bonuses.
Big signing bonuses. So, if I'm a kid and I live and I look at my family and I'm an okay baseball player, and if I look at my current track and I look at my skills and I look at the opportunity to get to the big show, if I get drafted in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, I may be playing in minor league baseball my whole career. That's where I've been scouted out. But hey, if I take the juice and I get a little bigger and I get a little faster and I get a little stronger and, I've got a girlfriend and now I've got a kid on the way and I'm making no money, but I can get drafted and I can get this huge signing bonus, is it worth the risk to me? Now, I'm not talking for everyone, but common sense is going to tell me if I'm coming from that type of situation, why wouldn't I do it? Why wouldn't I take the chance to make millions of dollars? That's where my frustration comes from, that nothing's being done at the big level to stop the reward. And so I don't know how to stop it. Unfortunately, that's my opinion. I don't have any way to stop it. I think what you're saying about getting it from the suppliers, that's about all we can do. But where do we go from here? I don't know. So I don't know what you think about my point about it feeding down into those players that are just average, seeing the reward. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, you're talking about the borderline MLB players. If I'm a borderline, MLB player, and I see I look at the risk and I look at the reward. If what it is if I get caught. Well, if I get caught, I'm a borderline MLB player anyway. So what's the big deal? I serve my suspension and I'm still playing minor league baseball. But if I don't get caught, now I'm making a $100 million contract. And that if I get that $100 million contract and then I get caught, no big deal because I just made about, let's say $60 million of that $100 million contract. Serve a 50-game suspension and I'm right back there, and that money's guaranteed. So if my production dips, well, too bad. I already made $100 million.
Exactly.
So I think, and if you want to stop players from doing it too, make it that you can go after them for part of their money if they get caught. If they're not going to get that money after they get caught, they have to renegotiate a new contract for a lot less than what they're getting paid. I guarantee you a lot less people would do it.
Yeah, that was part of my ramble, bud. It was about the whole contract thing. And the way that I had set it up is if you get caught, and it came out, it's never going to happen. The players union will never let it happen. But the way that I had said it when I was ranting is that if you get caught, your contract is at that point, the current contract you have is null and void. And when your suspension is over, you are still property of the team that had you, but you will only ever play for the minimum salary in baseball from that point forward. That's what I ranted about. It'll never happen. But I think that would scare some players. And maybe not. I mean, the minimum contract is still whatever it is. But they're never going to get that huge, huge payday anymore. So, it's just one of those things. As we sit and rant about this, everybody will have a ton of opinions on this. But we're just under 3 minutes to go, bud, and I think we've pretty much exhausted our rant on it. I think the listeners have gotten a pretty good gist that you and I are not real happy with this. But do you have any closing remarks on this wonderful Saturday?
Well, a couple change of topics. First one is kind of unfortunate news for those that haven't heard. Former Packers safety Darren Sharper, I guess, is being investigated for rape, sexual assault. So that's very unfortunate news. I was always a fan of his when he was in Green Bay. And now in good news, the roof of the Metrodome was being deflated today. So after today, no more Metrodome. Now we can only hope that the stupid horn that they play goes along with it.
I don't think that horn's ever going away, bud. I think that...
Or maybe they left that old guy in there when they imploded it.
Oh. Well,
the old guy on the motorcycle just as a Viking.
Yeah, the only way that's happening is if he's in a deep hibernation sleep, dude. He'll get on that motorcycle. He'll be wherever the Vikings are, unfortunately. Have you ever been to a game at the Metrodome?
No, I haven't.
I have. And it is even more annoying in person. It really is.
90 seconds.
So I agree with you. Take the horn away. But I don't think the horn's going away anytime soon. But with that said, bud, I know we previewed the AFC, NFC championship games yesterday. Talked a lot today about PED use in baseball. Monday we'll definitely get back and we'll recap NFL weekend. Have a safe trip to Madison, bud. Go Badgers. I hope that they can come out, play well.
60 seconds.
You and I will get back together on Monday, and we will talk about all of the Super Bowl hype. And to let the listeners know, we'll be grading other positions of the Packers throughout next week. But with that said, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. We will see all of you next week at the next red light.